welcome grand jurors, citizens grand jurors, to the continuing session with regard to the indictment of Politico's Josh Gerstein for his participation in a theft, which released the draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito of the U.S. Supreme Court concerning the reversal of the abortion decision, the infamous abortion decision, Roe v. Wade. We had a prior session. You can see it at freedomwatchusa.org. This is a continuing session. Just today, it was disclosed that the FBI arrested a man outside of the house of Justice Kavanaugh with a gun, apparently intending to murder him over his participation in the reversal of the decision of Roe v. Wade. Are we still on the screen, Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
This is very important because it shows the cause and effect. Is that Gerstein participating in the theft has effectively caused, reasonably foreseeable, the potential murder of a Supreme Court justice, notwithstanding the harm done to the Supreme Court itself, however compromised it may be, and harm to the American people with regard to having the decision issue that will reverse Roe v. Wade. As an aside, it's more than telling that 5 weeks after this decision was stolen and released, that the Supreme Court still does not release the names of people who are responsible for doing it. We know that Gerstein is for sure. He took credit for it. And we talked about that in our prior grand jury session. As an aside, it would appear because of that, there's a cover-up, and one of the justices themselves are probably behind it, maybe more than one. And frankly, since the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, is the one who oversees an investigation like this because he administers to the court and to its lower courts, he is the most likely suspect because he has been known to want to water down or not have issue at all the majority opinion by the other justices, including Kavanaugh. But for now, we're dealing with Gerstein. He must be held accountable. He is not a government official. He has no even claim of immunity. We are seeking his indictment, and we are seeking sentences which will include life imprisonment, particularly now that he instigated the potential murder of a Supreme Court Justice, Brett Kavanaugh. And don't think this will be the last instance of this happening in this regard. Now, I'm going to put up right now for the grand jurors to see the news report this morning of the person who was outside the home of Justice Kavanaugh armed, apparently.
Happened. Law enforcement sources are confirming to Fox that an armed man was arrested near the Maryland home of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. That happened early this morning. These are just the reports that we're getting in. And Sean, we know that the justices, there were protests outside of their homes. We know that those were encouraged. And of course, nobody was encouraging violence, but there was a great concern about violence. And thankfully, this person has been arrested. But your thoughts this morning as we get this breaking news that a armed man has been arrested near Justice Kavanaugh's home in Maryland.
Yeah, when you don't tamp down the energy of your movement, the pro-abortion movement, you encourage people to break the law and protest outside of Supreme Court justices' homes, which is breaking the law. People become radical. They do radical things, and that's when you get folks to pick up a gun and endanger the life of whether it was Steve Scalise on the baseball field or now a Supreme Court justice. Again, this is a time for Democrats to say, you know what, we may disagree with the court's potential ruling on Roe v. Wade, but you know what, we have to stand down, peacefully protest in places where we're allowed to protest. Go to the mall of the Capitol. But we don't protest and attack judges personally or their families or their homes. And I think that would be the right message from Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. But I don't see that message coming anytime soon, Dana, because they think that political pressure, that anger that's going to come towards the justices may actually move them away from this ruling that may come on Roe v. Wade.
Yeah. Sean, we're getting a little more details here. David Spunt, Bill Mears, saying the man, well, there's one report out there suggesting he was from California. That's out there. The man's name is being withheld. We're told that he's in his 20s. He was picked up on a street nearby, did not get to the Kavanaugh home. And U.S. Marshals and Montgomery County Police Department in Maryland have now responded to that. We were just doing a story yesterday, Dana, where a professor at Georgetown had tweeted about encouraging people to go to the homes of Supreme Court justices and make your voices heard. And as far as I know, Sean, that professor at Georgetown still has a job.
Yeah, no, it's insanity. But I think it's important to also note, Supreme Court justices, members of Congress, don't have the kind of security that the president has or the Speaker of the House has. And so there are moments where if you have some crazed individual with a gun that wants to do a justice harm, there is opportunity for that. And that's why it's so important, again, to encourage your side to stand down. You can't have professors like this or left-wing activists saying, you know what, this is so meaningful to us, we're willing to resort to violence and guns and take one of the justices out. I mean, this is scary stuff, Bill.
Yeah, sorry, Dana. Washington Post is now reporting a bit more. When he was in custody, he shared with police his desire to kill Kavanaugh. Wow. This is according to the Post now. The individual I mentioned described, mid-20s, a man, found to be carrying at least one weapon and burglary tools. These people speaking condition of anonymity. Reading this cold, guys, sorry about that. The man apparently did not make it to the home. I mentioned that. Two people familiar with the investigation said the initial evidence indicates the man was angry about the leaked draft of an opinion by the Supreme Court with regard to overturning Roe v. Wade. So also angry over a recent spate of mass shootings, according to those who were talking with the Washington Post.
Well, it's interesting, Sean, we've been waiting. June is usually the month when you get Supreme Court decisions. And today was one of the days we were expecting some decisions. They usually are announced around 10 a.m. Well, today there was only one announced. And we know that this Roe v. Wade decision will be coming. We don't know exactly what it says, but the leak would have you assume that it's going to be overturned. But you did not get that today. And in the meantime, you have other judges who, for example, Judge Salas, who has been on our air, talking about the need for the protection of judges who are basically trying to just do their jobs. And Brett Kavanaugh and all the other Supreme Court justices, they do have armed security, and thank goodness they do. But other judges across the country, they do not. And this culture of wanting to take out grievances for something that you disagree with, even if you don't have a law degree, you don't know the Constitution. I mean, that is what is leading to a lot of this madness.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, too. You mentioned that the decision did not come out today. And I wonder if the justices are trying to make a decision if Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. Are they working on the final draft of that decision, or are they thinking about the politics? Is it better to actually let some steam burn off with this decision out there before they actually release their opinion? Or do they think it was better to release it earlier? I have to imagine they think that letting it sit out there without a decision is better for the American people and the violence that'll come to probably release this later in the month. But you're right. I mean, to pick up guns, again, come from California, because you're mad about gun violence, Dana, I'm mad about mass shootings, so I'm going to take a gun and go after a Supreme Court justice. Again, the lights and sirens are on for Democrats to get their side to stand down, to be clear about protesting. Your First Amendment rights exist, but the peaceful nature, and stay away from the judges. Don't try to influence the judges' decisions.
And that
on
investigation
your anger and your
into that leak is continuing and apparently very much heating up. And you have a lot of the law clerks there apparently upset that their rights might be violated when you have this situation as a result. Thank you so much. Stand by, Sean. We appreciate you.
That is a very telling report on both sides of the political spectrum. Number one, there is obviously no investigation going on in terms of the leak. And as I said, it's most likely being covered up by Chief Justice John Roberts, who may himself have been responsible for the leak to try to create, and there was some recognition of this in the commentary, backlash against the decision to water it down or to have it nullified altogether. That is in terms of the reversal of the abortion decision, Roe v. Wade. Secondly, killing of Supreme Court justices in the past, however abhorrent, was actually the subject of a book and a movie called The Pelican Brief by John Grisham. And the reality of it is that there's reason to believe that Justice Antonin Scalia, who wrote a majority opinion back in 1992, United States versus Williams, where he said that the grand jury belongs to the American people and not the three branches of government, which gives rise to our authority to conduct them today. Not that we needed it because it's under the laws of nature and nature's God, but many people believe, yours truly as well, that Justice Scalia was murdered There were reports that he went to Texas without his U.S. Marshals as security, that he may have engaged in some conduct there that his family did not want revealed. There was never an autopsy, and that he was hit. He was obviously a swing vote on the Supreme Court, the most conservative at the time. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility. And also, comments made by Dana Perino, interesting as well. She's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Perhaps there was a reason why George W. Bush, who was not the sharpest president in the drawer either, short of Joe Biden, had her as his press secretary. They were kind of equal in terms of their academic and intellectual acumen. Says the judges are just trying to do their job. Well, no one can ever justify harming a judge or anybody else. But the fact is, they don't do their job. They violate their oath of office. And even the Supreme Court, despite the fact that yours truly would agree that Roe v. Wade should be overturned, it's an illegal decision. There's no right of privacy in this regard in the Constitution. The fact is, you can guess how justices rule based upon who put them on the bench, who greased the skids to put them on the bench, special interests, and which president appointed them. Even Trump's own Supreme Court justices threw him under the bus. It wouldn't even give him a hearing with regard to the 2020 election. So Dana Perino is out to lunch as usual. And again, there's no investigation. But there's one thing we do know. We know that Josh Gerstein's behind this. He claimed credit. This is the cornerstone of his career. It's his pinnacle. I've sued him for defaming me. He's defamed others out there, on the right, conservatives. He's a radical leftist. He's a member of the Marxian Jewish left. I'm a Jewish Christian, so you can't take that in an anti-Semitic way. But the fact is, Karl Marx was Jewish and he invented communism. And these people, if not communist, are very far leftist and are of his ilk. And they are there to destroy. And now the consequence, the apparent consequence of what could have occurred is a death of a Supreme Court justice, fiction becoming reality, Pelican Brief, in real time in terms of what's happening today. And no one can condone that. However politicized and however despicable judges are for making decisions not based on the law, but based on their political ideology, and those who paid bribes to get them on the bench, known as campaign contributions to politicians, no one wants to see them harmed. Therefore, let's look at the indictment that was presented last time. I added a paragraph this morning. We will be seeking the indictment. Those grand jurors who are present and listening and watching, they'll be able to vote on that indictment. They will choose a grand jury foreman. Those who are not available today will be able to watch it at our website at freedomwatchusa.org and ask questions. We will be getting the indictment of Gerstein, I'm confident, in the next few days. We will seek to have that carried out. He has no government immunity. He'll have an opportunity to plead. He'll have an opportunity to plead innocent, guilty, or nolo contendere. He will then be tried. We have proceedings that are scheduled today that will take place in the month of July. I'm convinced he will be convicted and we will ask for a life sentence. And this will be carried out, we believe, by law enforcement and the military if necessary. He is not himself protected by any immunity, governmental claimed immunity, however non-existent it is. Let's look at this criminal indictment. Okay, that's paragraph 1. You guys can read it on the screen, you men and women. Scroll down, Mr. Anderson, and do it slowly. And you'll be able to view this at freedomwatchusa.org. Paragraph 8 is what I modified this morning based upon the news reports. Let's stop there. And I'll read paragraph 7. Interestingly, upon the publication of the Josh Gerstein article, and he works for Politico, a far-left publication that tries to harm conservatives, before anyone had read it yet, Politico published the article with a photograph of past demonstrations outside the U.S. Supreme Court at the top of the article. Paragraph 8, this is the now modified and increased paragraph. Thus, Josh Gerstein knew and intended that his theft and publication of the draft U.S. Supreme Court opinion would spark political outrage and demonstrations, if not mayhem, assault, battery, and even death at and or concerning the U.S. Supreme Court by supporters of abortion. Predictably, on or about June 8, 2022, that's today, a person appeared at the home of Justice Brett Kavanaugh with a gun, intending to murder him as an apparent result of Josh Gerstein's theft and release of the draft majority U.S. Supreme Court opinion, purportedly reversing Roe v. Wade. This was the logical result of and a reasonably foreseeable criminal act as caused by the illegal acts of Josh Gerstein as set forth herein. Let's scroll down and let's see the various counts. And again, people will be able to review this at freedomwatchusa.org. It'll be up, on our website, on YouTube. It'll be blasted out to the world for people to see. American people need to understand that they own our justice system. It's not the political hacks and political hack judges in Washington, D.C. and throughout this country. As it says in the Declaration of Independence, when the sovereign no longer represents the people, I'm paraphrasing, in the course of human events, the people have a right under the laws of nature and nature's God to alter or abolish the government and to form a new government by and for the people with equal rights for everyone in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That's a paraphrase of what Jefferson and our founding fathers wrote. So count one is receiving government property and secrets. Go down to count two, Mr. Anderson. Count two is conspiracy to steal government property and secrets. And there it is, a true bill. The foreperson will be asked to sign it. He or she will be elected. I will sign it as a citizen's grand jury prosecutor. And I might add this, is that we even have the right, once this indictment is obtained, to conduct a citizen's arrest. In 48 states, including where Gerstein lives, there is a right for citizen's arrest when someone commits a felony, or you know of someone committing a felony. You then must turn them over to law enforcement. Here, obviously, the Biden Justice Department will take no action. We have a right of citizen's arrest, but we're not even going to do that. We're going to ask law enforcement to do it, and there will be those in law enforcement that will arrest Gerstein once this indictment is procured. And if they won't do it then certainly when there's a conviction. And unlike the judges of the DC District Court, Gerstein will be provided a right of bail, and he can then be out on his own recognizance, unlike the way the peaceful protesters have been treated by these judges. And the fact that I'm sympathetic to no harm taking place against Justice Kavanaugh, or any judge for that matter, does not mean that I don't believe that judges have not become tyrants and despots as Jefferson predicted they would. Jefferson, who I dedicated my book to, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, and my new one, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America, said federal judges, Supreme Court justices, unelected by the people, would become despots and tyrants, thinking that they have life tenure and are above the law, claiming that that's what cause us to shed the blood of patriots and tyrants yet again, every 20 years or so, adding what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty. It's the natural manure of government. I don't want to see that at all, neither do you. We don't want to see violence. And that's why these citizens' grand juries and the trials are so important. That's why the American people need to take back our legal system, as our founding fathers did in 1776, when King George III took our criminal justice system away from us back to the court of St. James. We will take our legal system back. We will enforce the rule of law. Freedom Watch and its citizens' grand juries are the only one that will hold Gerstein accountable. Even the Supreme Court justices themselves, we can see with the cover-up of this theft and leak, will not take action. And it's quite clear that one or more of them are implicated in this, and the likely suspect is Chief Justice John Roberts himself, if not a leftist justice. So, and perhaps all combined, because they all seem to be on the same page. So here's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. As I always say, remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves. We must do what our founding fathers did, invoke divine providence, and then act. Now is the time to act peacefully and legally. Josh Gerstein, I'm confident, will be indicted. He will be arraigned. He will be provided bail if he wishes to appear. If he does not wish to appear, we will try him once we get a conviction, and I'm confident we will. In absentia, we will seek a sentence of life imprisonment. We have a judge. We have a jury. It'll be done fairly. It will be done neutrally. but it won't be done in the District of Columbia as a foregone conclusion. Nothing can ever happen there that's good in terms of justice. So we will be back next week with another grand jury session, and by that time, I'm confident we will have procured the indictment signed by the foreperson and by me of Josh Gerstein, and we will hold him accountable to the rule of law. He is not above the rule of law simply because he's an investigative journalist. He now almost caused the murder of a Supreme Court justice by his actions. It was reasonably foreseeable that something like this would happen. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned.